Margaret McSweeney back in the kitchen with Chef Jaime Laurita here in the Viking La Cornue showroom. I have so enjoyed watching all of your Instagram posts, and you make me hungry every time I see them.
You're not the only one. I have so many people following me on my Instagram that say, oh my God, give me the recipe, give me the recipe. But a lot of these recipes, Margaret, quite frankly, I make up as I go along. This one, however, is an old family favorite. This is very simple. This is an Italian classic. I like to call it broccoli rabe. Now, Margaret, as you know, I always give you a little bit of homework.
Yes, you do.
So what did you learn about our product today?
Okay, well, this is broccoli rabe, also known as rapini, and it's part of the turnip family.
It sure is.
Yes.
So one thing about this dish is that a lot of people tend to overcook it, undercook it, and it can become very bitter. So I'm going to show you my way of doing it, where it won't be bitter at all. So one thing to remember when you're making this dish, Margaret, is that you have to find really fresh broccoli rabe. When you go to the store, I like to go to Whole Foods and lots of places that have organic produce. You don't want to find the broccoli rabe that's floured and yellow on the ends. You want it to be very stiff, just like this, so it could almost snap. You know what I mean?
But it did.
It did. So you want to, when I check out my broccoli rabe, my rapini in the store, I always look for that little snap. Did you hear that? So that tells me that it's fresh. You don't want it to be rubbery. The more rubbery it is, the more apt it is that it's going to come out bitter.
Can you eat this raw like regular broccoli?
I think you can. I think most greens can be juiced and eaten raw. But for me, this one in particular is a little bit rougher than most, a little bit more thistly, if that's a word, and a little bit harder to eat. So what you want to do first is wash it really well with ice cold water, trim off the ends, just the end about maybe about 2 inches off the end, and then cut it right down the center so you have 2 even pieces. And then what you want to do is use ice cold water and put it into a pot and then start your cooking process. So right here I've got some broccoli rabe going in this pan, and the key to it not getting bitter is to not overcook it. So what I like to look for, Margaret, in this pan is just a little bit of a simmer that starts to happen. So when we see some of the bubbles start coming up, I usually go 2 minutes into the bubble process. I'll look at it. I don't want it to boil over. I don't want this product to boil. I basically want to simmer it up, and I look for those little bubbles starting to happen, and then you'll get the perfect broccoli rabe consistency.
Oh, and it's beautiful. It's just so vibrant, vibrant green.
So, Margaret, do you know anything about shocking vegetables? I'm going to give you my version of shocking vegetables. You never want to shock like a root vegetable, like a carrot or a turnip or anything like a potato. Because they'll get mushy and weird. Greens are really, really great when they're shocked. What I mean is by having an ice bath. This is something that I usually have right beside my cooking pot of greens. When you shock a vegetable, Margaret, what happens is not only do they become super bright green, but they shock and they stop the cooking process from happening, and then your product becomes super juicy on the inside and really, really vibrant. So with this product and this green in particular, you want it to remain really, really, really green, and you don't want it to be overcooked because we're actually going to cook it again. You want to get your oil hot, and in my broccoli rabe, I use a ton of garlic. Now, for 1 head of broccoli rabe, I usually use about 12 to 15 loaves of garlic. That's just me. It's a lot.
That's a lot of garlic.
It is, but
it's delicious.
Again, everybody loves garlic. A little bit of chili flake, like a pinch. So let's say I'm cooking a double batch. We've got 2 heads going on here. So I'm going to use about 24 bulbs of garlic, sliced pretty thin, and then over medium heat, not too high, I'm going to bring that garlic up to a point where the garlic's just going to bubble just like that. And then slowly, I'm going to bring the heat up. Now, what I love about the range I'm cooking on, as I always say, nothing cooks like a Viking, is that Viking understands my procedure as far as turning up the heat. I've got this on a very low heat, just above a simmer, and then at a certain point I'm going to crank it up and I'm going to add the rest of my greens to continue the cooking process. So right now, you know, one of the greatest things, Margaret, about garlic is If you're ever doing a street fair, which I doubt you will be ever doing, but as a chef, I always, if I want a room to smell really great and I want people to come into my kitchen and go, oh my God, that smells amazing, all you really have to do is saute some garlic, get the appetite going. So here in the Viking showroom, I have many, many people always walking by the showroom here, sticking their head in. They're like, oh my God, chef, that smells delicious. And all I'm doing is really sauteing some garlic.
And I love that you're sauteing it in a Viking pan. Can you tell us about this? I've noticed all these beautiful pots and pans and cookware by Viking.
Oh, did you see my Viking pot wall?
I did.
And lots of different types of pots.
Yes.
Yeah, Viking has a new line of pots out there. Now, I've seen lots of pots in my life as a chef. I've been given them as gifts. A lot of people will give me knives and pots and all kinds of kitchen gadgets. But I really have to say, without any exaggeration, that Viking is really super doing it right with their pots and pans. These pans are amazing quality, super sturdy, really robust and heavy. I have to say that I'm most amazed at the new line of Viking appliances along with their pot line. I love them. So Margaret, what we've got here is some beautiful golden brown garlic. And I've got that golden brown. So now I'm going to add the broccoli. Now it's going to be a little cold from the ice bath, but that's okay. You hear that sizzle?
I love that sizzle.
You know I always talk about that sizzle when we're cooking, right?
Absolutely.
These are some of the sounds you want to listen for when you're cooking, anything that you're cooking. There's always a sound related to it. You want that nice sizzle to happen with broccoli rabe. Now in here, I've got my garlic, I've got my olive oil. I'm going to turn this around a little bit and saute it up so it becomes a little bit more, woo, the little one got away there. That'll be my friend. That's all right. And then I'm going to season it with a little salt and pepper.
Okay.
Now, the amount of seasoning is very, very important. When I say a pinch, I say a nice healthy pinch, just like that. And the same thing with the pepper. A nice healthy pinch. And that's really all you're going to need right there. So basically, Margaret, you're going to let this cook. Now the simmer is getting a little bit less, right?
It is.
So what's happening is that broccoli now is beginning to get warm again, and it's starting to let out some of its liquid. So that's a really great sign that you're doing the right thing when you see some of that liquid start coming out of the pan. And then over high heat for about 4 minutes, you're basically going to cook this product until it's warmed or hot all the way through for another 2 or 3 minutes. Close off the heat, and then you're done. So I want to show you on the pot here, we're starting to get those bubbles. Do you see that?
I see the bubbles, and I'm smelling the fragrance. This is so great.
It's so amazing. Yeah. So this now is starting to bubble. That's your point when you first start to see those bubbles come up, that you want to turn your broccoli a little bit. You want to turn it around a little bit. You don't want this to be boiling over. You don't want to overcook this. You want it to be fresh and green and crisp. That's how it, to me, in my opinion, that's when it tastes the most delicious. So as you spin it, it'll stop the bubbling process, but it will start up again. Once it starts up again, and then you start to see it just start to simmer a little bit harder, that's when you're going to plunge it into your ice bath. So on this front over here, you have your broccoli, and it's super, super done and delicious. Now, Margaret, the great thing about this dish is that it's a great side. It's delicious cold, believe it or not. I've served this with like chilled shrimp salad over it. It's wonderful on sandwiches. It's great if you take a nice long piece of ciabatta bread, put your broccoli rabe on it, maybe some sausage and peppers on it, melt just some cheese over it, some mozzarella cheese or provolone. This dish is so versatile. You could even toss it into your frittata in the morning if you want to make an egg frittata. Yes. Just throw it in as in, nothing else, maybe a little bit of mozzarella cheese or whatever cheese you like. Bake that in the oven. There's so many different ways. Excellent with grilled steak, grilled fish. It's just beautiful as is. Oh. So now as you see, Margaret, our bubbles are starting to come up again. And this is talking to me now. So to me, this is the time where I feel like I got a nice little wilt on it. It's nice and bright green. I'm starting to see those bubbles come up again. It's nice and hot. And this is where I'm going to then throw it into my ice bath. So we're here in Chicago doing the polar plunge on our broccoli rabe. So once that gets nice and cold and you can pull a piece out and it's not hot any longer. It's properly shocked. You squeeze it out, and you're done. It's that simple, guys.
Yeah.
Basically, you get your broccoli nice and hot. It's nice and sautéed. You see all that juice that's out of there, Margaret?
Beautiful.
That's what you're looking for.
Yes.
Actually, those juices are actually delicious with some crusty bread.
Oh, I bet.
So I'm just going to give you a little piece here, a tiny little piece. And you can hold on to that.
Thank you.
Is that too big? And then, Margaret, also, guys, so this is pretty done to me. You can do fun things with this. You can add in some toasted pine nuts at the end, some roasted tomatoes. What do you think?
That is delicious.
Isn't that delicious? So here we have the broccoli rabe, nice and bright and green, very, very juicy. I've tossed in some pine nuts. I want you guys to imagine some roasted tomatoes in here. Maybe we could run those through the Turbo Chef. A grilled chicken breast, slicing that over the top, melting some cheese over it. Many, many different ways to spin this dish. And this is the way I do it that everybody loves. Not bitter. Was that bitter at all?
Not at all.
Not
I
at
could
all.
even see it on top of a pizza.
Yeah, I think once you cook it, even if you sauteed it too long and it got really mushy, some people like it like that. I have family members that prefer it that way. If you want it to be a little bit more bitter and mushy, just keep cooking it to your liking. I like it a little bit firmer and greener.
I love this recipe.
So easy.
Yes, and how many people would this feed?
I think two heads of broccoli would serve about 4 to 6 people.
And all in all, how long does it take to prep and cook?
From
would you
beginning
say?
to end, this is one of the simplest things, and again, super versatile. This dish, from beginning to end, should take you no longer than 15, 20 minutes.
That is doable.
Again, beautiful side, great for vegetarians, people that just love, and kids that normally don't like broccoli will love this because of all that garlic.
Well, thank you for sharing broccoli rabe. You have brought broccoli rabe into my
So
life.
we're still on our Italian culinary journey here in the Viking showroom. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, watching Margaret and I. These are so fun. I'm so glad you guys get to finally get my recipes here from Instagram. Tune in to the Viking Life, right?
Yes, thevikinglife.com and hashtag the Viking Life, my Viking Life, liking my Viking.
Yes, and always come and visit me here in the Merchandise Mart in our Viking La Cornue showroom where there's always something delicious cooking.